Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to another fun episode of Career Success with Adrian and Yan. If you're wondering why today, if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, why today we are not operating from our usual studio, it's because A, it's the Chinese New Year, the third day, and we don't want to work anymore, but we want to work because we're having a B, fun superstar guest today. Yan, how are you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm hungover. This is my second cup of coffee. It is
Yeah, keep calm
the
and career on.
New Year season. Cheers.
Yeah. So, for those of you who are listening in, my name is Adrian and I'm the CEO and founder of Career Agility International. And as always, Yan, my trusty super coach, is here with us again today. And today we're going to talk about something really interesting. We're going to talk about introverts.
Meeting relatives. We're going to talk about how introverts survive in the meeting long lost relatives over a Chinese New Year stressful season.
Which was really funny because my daughter's an introvert and I saw how she suffered throughout the whole day. She was like just sitting
Yeah.
there in the corner,
Oh,
like,
yes,
oh, which I was somewhere else. If it wasn't
okay.
for the ang paos, I wouldn't be here kind of face.
Which uncle is this? Which auntie is this? But yes, you're right. We have a very, very exciting guest this morning. And this was her only availability. So we wanted to catch her. And she's going to share with us some secrets on how we can, on how introverts function, or those of us who are introverted. How are we going to well, leverage our strengths?
Do you know what is the number one problem with introverts?
Public speaking?
No, I don't know. I don't know because they will never tell me they're introverts. They just keep to themselves. So
Very
anyway,
funny. Very funny.
so without further ado, I want to introduce Serena Low. Let's get Serena on. Okay, let's just plug her in.
Yes.
Serena, good
Yes. Very excited.
morning.
Good morning, Adrian and Yan. Thanks for having me. 恭喜发财.
So 恭喜发财.
Morning.
So fun to have you. Serena Low, she is an introvert coach. Okay, which is very funny because when I first saw her title, introvert coach, I thought she was an introverted coach, but she does coach
Yeah, that's
introverts. She is the host of her Quiet Warrior podcast, and she's been doing this for quite a while. She's been coaching for the past 13 years, actually. That's a very long time, and she's based in Melbourne. And
wonderful.
in today's day and age, it doesn't matter where you're based because if you have Zoom, you can work from anywhere. If you need to reach out to her, you can always do that. And interesting, but she is actually a trained lawyer.
Isn't that what it's a fun career pivot story as well. I would love to understand a little bit more about that transition.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, Serena, good morning. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So today, once again, it's going to be quite free flow. We just want to find out a bit more about what you do, but more importantly, one of the biggest challenge a lot of our clients have is that they identify as being introverted, and as a result, they see that as an introvert, I am not so loud spoken. I'm not so in your face like all the other extroverts, and therefore, it does handicap my career somewhat. That's a common idea, and I don't know whether it's a misconception or not. That's why we wanted to talk to you today to find out a bit more whether or not introverts really are at an inherent disadvantage. But before we begin, big question, Serena, what is an introvert?
An excellent question. The simplest way I can put it is to use what Susan Cain mentions in her book, Quiet. And that is that the introvert is someone whose energy gets depleted and drained by being around people. And the extrovert is the opposite. So the extrovert thrives on company. The more people, the merrier. The bigger the party, the better. But for the introvert, it's the other way. So the more people we are around, the more our battery drains.
Yan, how's your audio, Yan? You look a bit frozen.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lag on my end, and I'm not sure whether to jump in or to wait until everyone's done talking. So
Uh, uh,
apologies
uh,
if there's technical lags. Yeah, I might have.
your line, yeah, your line is laggy, but it's okay. You can just jump in when you want to. Uh, Yan, quick question, Yan. Do you identify as an introvert or an extrovert?
As with a lot of individuals, many people tell me they've changed over the year, and as they get older, they've become either more one or the other. In fact, the bulk of the people I've spoken to say that they've become more introverted as they've gotten older. So that was a curious question I'd like to ask Serena. It's like, is there a possibility that someone shifts from extroversion to introversion as they age?
Very good question. And that's actually consistent with the experiences of a lot of people I've spoken with, which is that as they get older, they notice themselves becoming more introverted. And I think probably it's also the season of life. And it's also, values and priorities shifting. Peace of mind, mental health, all that has become much more important in the last couple of years with things that have been happening around us. So I think people realize that sometimes you just need to be by yourself. You need to really, appreciate your own company, spend time doing things you enjoy. And you don't necessarily have to be with people or surrounded by people in order to enjoy those things.
So what about those that call themselves ambiverts? Have you heard of that? Are
Yes.
there people who are both extroverted and introverted given certain conditions and contexts?
Yes, we have quite a few of them in my introvert community who I identify as ambiverts. And basically, actually, if you think about it, none of us is really locked into that label of introvert or extrovert permanently. It's a spectrum. So we are free to move up and down that spectrum. And like you say, sometimes it depends on other factors, like who are you with? What are we all talking about? How many people are there? And then the ambivert will find that they can amp it up when they need to, but they also need to recharge after that. So they can be very sociable, very outgoing, very confident, let's say for a couple of hours or standing in front of a group. But then afterwards, they need another half day to decompress. So that is quite the classic ambivert kind of behavior.
I think that types a lot of us.
Except
Adrian,
me. For me,
have you ever needed to
for,
recharge?
no. Yeah. If I do a whole evening of social events, yeah, I'm just tired. But I think that's a function of old age than anything else. But as you get older, you tend to lose your energy when you talk to too many people. But for me, I am actually energized. While I'm in it, I'm actually very energized talking to people. So as I shared with many of our listeners out there before, I am an extreme extrovert. Okay, so you can sit me down next to anybody and I'll start talking. And interestingly, Yen, you're also actually quite extroverted, if I would say so myself,
I
because you're quite comfortable talking to people, strangers, the NTUC FairPrice aunties, whoever it is. You just sit down and you talk to them like you. So I think you're
yes, but
I would label you an extrovert.
I do type as an extrovert, but I have a lot of introverted tendencies. And in the MBTI world, I have what we call oopses, out of preferences symptoms. I don't know. So it depends on the situation. And if I'm compared with you, Adrian, I definitely appear more introverted. Do you
Anyone
know,
next to me
Serena?
appears introverted. Hello. So
Adrian, just tell a quick story to Serena. There was once when we had to go to a workshop, and we were looking. I arrived first, and I had to look for a place to park. And there was a very nice gentleman who helped me find a lot. He was kind of like the guardian, the custodian person. And then Adrian arrived later, and he said, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm parking." He texted me, but then he took a long time to arrive into the training room. And then I said, "Hey, what took so long? Did you not find a lot?" Because the uncle was very nice. He found me a lot. He went, "Oh, yeah, I was talking to him. I found out about his knee surgery. I found out how many grandchildren he had. I found out what his favorite foods are. He was telling me where to go eat." And I was going like, typical Adrian.
that's, that's funny. And
That
Serena,
was, that was
the
funny.
the person who suffers most in my life when it comes to my extroversion is my wife, because she's quite introverted. And yeah, she says, every time you walk the dog, it takes half an hour if you do it, because you're going to talk to all the neighbors and everything. Can you just shut up and just move on? So that's
So,
tough.
Serena, I have a question. So, what's the biggest misconception about introverts? I mean, do people not understand them?
I wouldn't say biggest misconception. Well, there are quite a few misconceptions. Usually it's to do with all introverts are shy, antisocial, don't like people, not good at talking to people, not leadership potential, things like that. And I think that's to do with actually it depends on the culture and the environment you're in as well. So in Singapore, probably it's a more extroverted kind of culture, and
Mm.
same here in Australia where I am. And so the expectation is that you are meant to be chatty when you're with people. You should speak up. You should, keep the conversation going. But introverts are the opposite. We take time to think. We want to make sure that when we say something, it's valuable, it's accurate, it's helpful in some way. And so by the time we finish thinking, it's like another 6 seconds has gone by. The conversation has moved on. So we come across as, oh, she doesn't contribute anything to the conversation. She's very quiet, too quiet, you need to speak up more, things like that. So those are, yes, misconceptions in some way. It's to do with what we expect of others around us.
So are they disadvantaged?
How do you mean disadvantaged? You mean in a professional sense?
Yeah, in a corporate setting.
In a corporate setting, if your corporate is the typical corporate where everyone is expected to be always talking, always contributing, then yes, in some ways the introvert would be disadvantaged. But I think that is also overstating it, because that means the introvert has no free will, no power, no ability to, adapt themselves to the situation. And so, because there's not one type of introvert, there's a whole spectrum. And
Mm.
the introvert can be outspoken at the right time. If they know what the topic is about, it's something they are an expert in, if they have sufficient preparation, and usually either in a small group or one on one, that's their ideal setting. That's when they really shine. So it's also up to the introvert who is aware of these systemic issues to position themselves in such a way that they look really good at the right time, that people can see that they know what they're talking about, that they are the subject matter expert, they have chalked up some wins already. And so it's not like they can't do anything about it and they're just passive. They're not passive players. I mean, if they choose to do that, then yes, it would be a disadvantage for them. But I think we would need to give people a lot more credit, that they can be much more self-empowered.
I want to touch on when you mentioned the word shy earlier, because there are shy extroverts as well. A quick tangent. How do you overcome shyness?
It depends what the root cause of the shyness is, I guess, because some of it can go pretty deep and pretty far back. And so in some of my work with clients in therapy as well, we notice that some of the dots that they connect go back all the way back to childhood, and sometimes it's a very innocent, well-intentioned thing. Somebody said something or didn't say something or said it in a particular way, and the child, 5 years old, 7 years or whatever,
Mm.
takes it to have a certain meaning, and it becomes part of their identity, and they keep going with it. They keep replaying that story every time some new challenge comes up. They are reminded of that time when that auntie or whoever said that thing that hurt them or made them feel small, and then they repeat that, and it becomes, oh, I'm shy, oh, I can't talk to people, or I can't sell, or I can't go to networking events. So that becomes like a limiting belief. It becomes a story that stops you from doing things. So if you want to
Mm.
say, if you think of shyness as it's just a reflection of how we coped at the time. That was the best we could do at the time. It's a coping mechanism. It's not like an illness or a condition that you have to overcome.
Mm.
There's no medication you need to take for it. There's nothing broken about a person who is shy. It's more about,
Yeah.
okay, I'm aware that under these circumstances, I'm not very comfortable. Maybe it's this person that brings out, a certain side of me, and I need to manage around that. I need to do maybe some prep work. If I know I'm going to have a conversation with this challenging person, let me adjust myself and, do something to prepare myself mentally before I
Mm-hmm.
talk to them.
Mm-hmm. I think shyness, and I'm wondering out loud, is shyness also a function of culture and gender? Okay, because especially in the Asian culture, oftentimes kids are told, children are to be seen and not heard. And if
Mm.
you talk, you get frowned upon. And also, I think in terms of the Asian culture as well, boys can speak up and make a lot of noise when they're young, but the girls are supposed to be demure and sitting down in the corner. I don't know. Does it affect the culture and the gender?
Definitely. It's also influenced by culture and gender. Having said that, I've also spoken with a lot of people who are from different backgrounds, so not Asian, but they also say that they grew up being told, children are to be seen and not heard and all that. So that I think is a function of those times
Yes.
that people grew up in, maybe 60s, 70s, that's 80s, that's the kind of ethos that is popular, or
Mm.
that's the accepted norm. But things change and times change. So it's a question of self-awareness. Like, what do we want to do about that? Do we want to keep perpetuating these sorts of values, or do we want to change the way we are inside our own families so that our children can then inherit a different kind of pattern?
I have a theory about something. You said in the
Mm.
old days, in the 80s, it used to be children are not should be seen and not heard. I think today, children don't want to be heard because they just want to go on their little devices and just stay there and not want to talk to anybody. Does that increase, you think, the rate of introversion? I don't know. Moving forward.
I think this attachment to devices cuts across all temperaments and all personalities. It wouldn't be just the introverts. Maybe it makes the introvert become even more introverted, if that's what you mean, as in they spend more time inside their shell.
Yeah, no, I'm
Mm.
thinking that it actually makes people, even the extroverts, become more introverted because like, I've got everything I need here. I don't need to meet people or talk to people or, it's just, I don't know. Ian, what do you think, Ian?
I think, Adrian, you're confusing introversion, which is a function of energy, with sociability, which
No,
is
wait,
a
okay, sorry.
different
Yes, right.
different paradigm altogether. So
True.
I think generationally, everyone's going to be very comfortable on their devices. Also because there's a wall that separates us from the other party via a platform or mechanism, and keyboard warriors are very sociable and very opinionated. Uh, but
It's true.
Serena is right about how perhaps it could amplify your reserved nature, and that we all get energy, well, from different sources. And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of energy from being on my device. I'm happy. I'm happily doom scrolling.
That's why you cannot sleep at night. Just, you're energized by your device. You can't sleep.
That's a good one.
But
So Serena, what advice do you have if we have younger individuals who
hmm,
are perhaps more comfortable communicating via messages and texts and DMs rather than doing face to face or one to ones or in person type interactions? Any advice?
First of all, is it a problem? Has it been a problem for them? Are you, if you are saying in the professional setting that because they are so much on their devices, they don't know how to talk to people in
Mm.
a regular one-on-one way, then yes, that would be a problem, that they are losing the people skills, the social skills. There is, I wouldn't say there's any cure or anything for that. It starts with awareness, knowing that, okay, I've spent too much time on my device today. Maybe there are apps that you can use to, limit how much time you spend. But of course, first of all, the person must want to change. They must realize there is a problem. It's affecting them professionally, it's affecting how other people perceive them, and therefore they want to do something about it. And assuming they want to do something about it, then it becomes a matter of what else can I do with my introverted nature that is comfortable for me to, allows me to connect with people, relate to people, get to know people, learn from people, but at the same time, honoring that I do so differently, that I
Mm.
communicate differently. And you can lean more into your introverted strengths too. Writing is one of the super strengths of the introvert, because it allows you to go inside, reflect deeply, and then do your own research, and then what you produce is usually very well thought out.
hmm,
It's quite articulate, it's well put
Mm.
together, and that is a reflection of the conscientious nature of most introverts. So that is actually a strength. So they can lean into their writing much more and put together something that is much more impressive.
I love that. You're right about the communication styles. We all have preferences. Whether it's picking up the phone to call, I don't know anyone who does that anymore, or having a one-to-one interaction. I know a lot of individuals still prefer meeting face to face. And you're right. And I love that you are highlighting now the strengths of the introvert. Do you have any others that we can celebrate? Any other ideas about what the introverted strengths are?
There are so many.
Good, good.
When you think of introverted leaders, quiet
Yeah.
leaders, they have a charisma that is quite different. We talk a lot about executive presence and how people need to be
Mm,
more charismatic. There are courses that teach people how to develop executive presence. It, for me, the introvert starts from the point of the opposite of I'm broken, as in, because the culture is such that, there's something wrong with an introvert, there's something not enough about an introvert. So
mm,
actually, the
mm,
biggest work the introvert needs to do is the inner work, to start from that place of actually there's nothing wrong with me. Not only is there nothing wrong with me, there is plenty that is really good and worth appreciating, emulating, cultivating about me. The introvert is quiet, they're thoughtful, they're conscientious, they are very careful with accuracy, with data, they're very responsible, they take time to think through all the implications. So that's very useful for research. They write well, they speak well,
Hmm.
they are deep thinkers. And when it comes to leadership, they are also more inclusive because they know what it's like to be a quiet voice. So they would make space for quiet voices around the table, for diverse views to be heard. And they would also be the one that curates that space. So, we talk about psychological safety, which is really important in the workplace. So, in terms of looking out for the quiet ones, paying attention to how different people like to communicate, making sure it's not always those one or two people who are hogging the conversation and talking over other people. So they would also notice, okay, maybe these quiet team members prefer to follow up by email or prefer a one-on-one conversation to follow up after the meeting. So, not putting everyone in the spotlight in the same way, because the introverts don't react well to that and they tend to wilt a little bit when they feel that they're being ambushed. They actually need some time, some preparation. So there needs to be a bit of background work done to make sure that happens. And also allowing for alternative forms of communication, like writing or emails, instead of always that face to face element. So I think there are
yeah.
many, many strengths of the quiet person.
But you see, that's where therein lies the problem, because a lot of the communications with senior managers and senior leaders and the decision makers are usually face to face, spontaneous in the room, either via presentations or just even at the coffee machine, or the water cooler talk. You sit around and talk about, and that's where the extroverts get the leg up on the introverts, I would believe. And they get a higher visibility, they get higher profile, they get conversations going, and the introvert has difficulty, I guess, doing that. Doesn't that put them in a disadvantage? And how should they, apart from just on the written text and everything, how do you get in? How, as an introvert, I would like to know, how do I pluck up the courage, perhaps, or just to go up and talk? But once again, I may be conflating shyness with introversion. But what are your thoughts?
It's not only shyness and introversion, there are a couple of different elements as well. And that is that some introverts are also highly sensitive people, meaning that they are very attentive to nuances, to changes in the environment, to stimulation. And so, anything that comes too suddenly, too loudly, too brightly, and so on, it's also going to affect their state. So I think the introvert needs to do a little bit more of that inner work and take self responsibility in this kind of setting, because it's got to be two ways, right? We can't rely on the system or the leadership team entirely to be figuring out everybody's temperament and how best to communicate with everyone in a way that allows each person to shine. And yes, you are right, the extroverts do seem to have a bit of an advantage there. So the introverts also need to step up and advocate for themselves and
Mm.
put themselves, position themselves in such a way that they can be seen, not necessarily around the water cooler, because, it's also about noticing, okay, where are the other opportunities where I can shine away from these loud voices? How do I
Mm.
carve out a little bit of that spotlight for myself in a way that's a bit of a stretch, but I know I can do it and I know I have something to contribute to this discussion. And that
Mm.
it's about being creative and being flexible. So it's not like a either or where, because somebody is extroverted, they're going to they hog all the limelight. I mean, I would imagine that a leader who is aware of all these dynamics happening in the office environment would also be taking on a proactive stance in managing
Mhm.
that and not allowing only the loud voices to dominate and to, contribute and be heard. But they would also be proactively making space for the quiet voices to be heard. But the quiet voices themselves also need to step up and advocate for themselves, take care of each other, make space for other quiet voices, maybe collaborate together. There are so many things that we can do.
Yeah, baby steps, I think, and I think it's important to recognize that there is no one type that's ideal and one type that's imperfect. Well, our biases seem to go that way, and we know that extroverts, they think and talk at the same time, which inadvertently could be accidentally saying the wrong things, and so there's going to be good and bad on both ends. I like that you highlighted the strengths of the introvert, and so that they recognize that they are unbroken, that they are not, it's not a problem. What I noticed though is that a lot of individuals tend to use it as an excuse. They'll say, oh, I'm introverted, therefore I do not want to go networking, or I'm uncomfortable networking, and they resist, steps. They resist making any progress in that direction because they're uncomfortable. Any thoughts on networking and introversion?
That is actually a very good way to bring in the concept of the quiet warrior. And the idea of the quiet warrior is that with introverts, we start off at the level of quiet achiever, meaning
Mhm.
that's a term that most of us recognize. Being in the background, doing our work quietly, not always being noticed or appreciated, but people rely on us. They know that we produce good work, but we're not seen and we don't get very much attention. The idea is that along the way, we need to graduate, we need to upgrade, we need to move on from that label of quiet achiever, because there are always going to be times when we need to step up, take ownership of something, become the leader, become the voice. And sometimes it's not about us, it's about somebody else who doesn't have the voice or the power to speak up. And we feel a moral obligation to do so. Because if we don't speak up, then they don't get heard at all and nothing changes. So there are going to be times like that when we are each called to level up
Mhm.
and become the quiet warrior. So, but that is a journey, it's a process. It's not something that happens immediately. You can't just change your mindset and say, and tomorrow you become the quiet warrior. You actually have to go through quite the hero's journey in doing so. And that is actually the work that I'm involved in. So that's why I'm
Mm.
the quiet warrior coach for introverts. So I take them on this journey where they start off as quiet achievers. And when they are done, they realize that they have transformed into the quiet warrior who can think, who can act, who can speak, go to networking events and give a speech, give a 30-second elevator pitch, and not crumble, not wilt just because the spotlight is on them for that moment. And they realize that they actually have a voice and they have good ideas and they have a lot to say, and they can say it. They can say it quite powerfully.
How long does that journey take?
That depends on the individual. Some people are a bit more hesitant, more have more resistance. And so there are all those issues to work through, emotions, old childhood traumas or memories or experiences that they need to let go of. It's after they start letting go and clearing those layers that the healing can take place. And that's when they start embodying the qualities of the quiet warrior, that they start seeing themselves differently. The minute that shifts in them, It's amazing what the transformation can be because they have become a totally new person. And when you are that different person, your energy is different as well. And people pick that up. You project differently, you carry yourself differently, you speak differently, and people notice it. Something has changed about this person, and they start reacting to you differently too.
Hmm.
Are there any
Eh,
celebrity or senior leadership, famous people that are introverted but do not appear introverted? Someone we can look up to and say, hey, that's an introvert who's made such amazing, strides in their careers. Is we need someone to look up to, don't we? And sometimes we want to emulate. We obviously we look at people, and I call them the silent mentors. People we observe and go, wow, oh, I like that, and then I'm going to pick up a few cues from this person and hopefully internalize some of those behaviors as well. Is there anyone you would recommend as someone we can look up to?
I can think of two people off the top of my head. One is Barack Obama. The other one is Oprah herself. So Oprah comes across as very extroverted, but if you observe the way she connects with people, when she's talking to that one person, it's like there's nobody else in the room. It's just
Mm,
her and her guest having that really heartfelt moment, and she's got this ability to draw, deep conversation, deep thoughts, and very private sharing out of people because she puts them at ease. You feel very safe around her. She's like that kind of a mother figure. She makes you feel very cared for while she's talking with you. And Barack Obama is like that as well. He speaks very slowly but very powerfully. And from what I've read, he spends a lot of time on his own, in his study, reading, writing, reflecting, and that those are the strengths of the introvert. It is out of those hours of solitude and reflection that they can then come out back into the limelight when needed and say what they say and do it in that way that is really eloquent and powerful.
oh, I love that. People to emulate. I love that. Are there any other ideas that you can share with our listeners around, um, working on improving themselves? I mean, you've shared a lot already. Is there any other advice you can give on how perhaps an introvert can do some self promotion? You know how in the corporate setting we're in a game of visibility, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
and
you have
to
any
reinforce what Yen said, it's also a matter of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
That's one way of looking at it. I think those terms may not resonate with a lot of introverts, and that's why there's that hidden resistance. As soon as you say you've got to fake it till you make it, the introvert is like, no, I refuse
Mm,
to, because I don't like being fake. I want to be
mm,
myself, but the system is forcing me to act in a way that's not authentic to me. And so I
mm,
can't do it. And so that's actually a good reason why you might say the introvert is disadvantaged in that way. It's also the language we use, and words are very powerful.
Mm,
mm,
So for the introvert, I would actually reframe a lot of these corporate sayings. Um, it's about being seen and heard, yes. It's about letting your quiet voice be heard, letting sharing your ideas, sharing your stories. It's about that deep and intimate connection that you have that comes from being yourself. We all appreciate authenticity in other people. When someone is being honest, transparent, vulnerable with us, we feel it's like a sacred moment. Wow, that person actually entrusted me, with that information, which is so private. And when you reflect back that kind of appreciation, it makes the other person feel really heard and really safe. So these are things that introverts do really well. It's
mm,
just that maybe they haven't got the awareness around it because there's so much noise and people are constantly telling them they're too quiet and they need to speak up and need to speak louder, and they think they have to shout to be heard, but you don't have to. You simply have to find, carve out that little spot in whatever spotlight you wish to shine in, and make that
yeah.
your space. Keep growing, be 1% better every day. I have that as a mantra for myself personally, that it's not about big, massive changes. It's about being 1% better every day compared to the day before. And then over time, like as James Clear says in Atomic Habits, if you do that every day, in 1 year, you'll be 37 times better than when you started out. It's these little things that compound over time. Be braver, with one conversation at a time. Talk to one new person at a time. When you go into a networking event, you don't have to work the room and you don't have to feel obliged to talk to every single person. You just need to take one step more than you did the last time. Come away from the edges of the conversation, make connection with just one person, have a really good conversation, get curious about them because people love talking about themselves. You ask them genuine questions and show interest in them, their story, what they're doing there, and soon you'll find connections. You'll find things to keep talking about.
Mhm.
Introverts are very good listeners, and that is actually another super strength. Other people love to talk, we love to listen. So it's a great dance.
I think one thing nice from today's conversation is that I'm taking away is that a lot of times we overlook that introverts have their own inherent strengths. The fact that they are more contemplative, they communicate better. I didn't realize that in terms of writing instead of just speaking out. And as a leader, being an introvert, I guess you are definitely more aware and more inclusive to people who are not participating, I guess. So I think these are things I've never actually realized because my biggest difficulty is learning when to shut up. So it's as an extreme extrovert. So I'm learning a lot today. But in terms of career wise, what are some of your final advice you can share with our listeners, even as we close off this session? What are some words of wisdom you can share with our introverts who are listening in?
I would say accept and celebrate who you are. The unique way in which your brain works, the unique way in which you think and bring those great ideas to an audience. It's also about taking self responsibility, looking for ways to let your light shine at the right stage, with the right people in the right setting, and keep doing that inner work. Because when you change your perception of yourself as an introvert, it's not just you're going past the label. You're not just saying, I'm an introvert, so I can't sell, I can't network, I can't do public
Mm,
presentations. You're saying, I'm an introvert and I can communicate powerfully, I can impact people, I can change lives, I can do great work. I'm just doing it differently. And so the energy is different when you start seeing yourself as someone who already has a lot of great traits and positive traits which other people may not have, and then looking for ways to leverage, maximize, optimize your opportunities. So it also requires being proactive, not coming from that kind of a victim mentality of I'm nobody pays
mm,
attention to me, nobody's seeing me, I'm not being heard, but actively going out there, being 1% braver every day and
Mhm,
taking responsibility for the outcomes and the way we portray ourselves, the way we project ourselves to other people, and then finding a way to communicate because everyone wants to be understood, everyone wants to be seen and to be heard and validated. And with
mhm,
our introvert
mm.
strengths of listening and communication and being able to hold space for others, we are already in a very good position to do so. We
mhm.
just need to keep doing it.
I love that. Thank you
That's
so much for
yeah.
sharing that with our clients or our listeners as well. How would someone reach out to you if they needed more support?
A good way would be to look me up on LinkedIn and send me a connection request there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I'm also the host of the Quiet Warrior podcast. So I would welcome all, introverts, highly sensitive people, empaths especially, to tune in because you'll learn a lot from the interviews that I'm doing with people around the world.
Lovely.
That sounds so fun. Thanks a lot for your time today, Serena. It's been amazing. How's the weather in Melbourne, by the way?
It's quite cold today, surprisingly. It's 20 degrees, which is not normal for summer.
Okay, but that's Melbourne for you, isn't it? So,
It is four seasons in a day. You never know what's happening.
okay, great. So, thanks a lot for your time, Serena. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've learned so much today, and I shall be kinder to my introvert wife and talk less. So, Which was
Thank
difficult
you.
over the Chinese New Year dinner. I was like, she was telling me, "Shut up, Adrian. Shut up. You're talking too much. You're hijacking my conversations." Okay, shit. Shut. Gotta learn how to shut up. So thanks a lot for your time, Serena. It's been great, and
Thank you,
yeah,
Serena.
looking forward to having you on our show again.
Thank you very much, Adrian and Yen.
Okay, thanks,
Take
Serena.
care. Bye.
Take
Okay,
care. Bye.
so Yen, what's your biggest
Yes.
takeaway from the session?
I think that we kind of already tell or help our clients on how to network and some of the little bits and pieces. But I really love that she put it into a perspective
Mhm.
that helps. I think it's a bigger picture. So a couple of things. The inner work, I think she mentioned that. So it's really about changing your internal monologue from, oh, because I'm an introvert I cannot, to because I'm an
Mhm.
introvert I have. So I like that, and I like the 1% better, the Atomic Habits one. Be 1%
Mhm.
better every day.
Mhm.
So a couple of things. I think those two takeaways resonate. You don't have to be an introvert or an extrovert. I think it works across the board for everyone. You can just be 1% better than yesterday, and
That is
to
true.
do our internal monologue.
That's
Because
true. That's true.
our internal monologue can cripple us or can boost us. And I know it sounds very cliche, but yeah, I think everyone needs to just learn how to get networking, because even extroverts are shy. There are shy
Yeah,
extroverts who don't like
that's true.
network.
That
Yeah.
is true.
So
That's true. All a matter of perspectives, isn't it?
has
So
that changed me? Am I more introverted or more extroverted? The answer is I think it depends on the people I hang out with.
that's true. That's true. And like what you say now,
Mm,
it depends on who you're standing next to, right? So
Yep. Who do you surround yourself with? I never knew Oprah was an introvert. That's amazing. Any
mm,
takeaways, Adrian, for you? Besides learning
me,
to let
shut
other
up.
people talk.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah. Introvert leaders. I think that is something which to me it's sometimes an oxymoron.
Mm,
To me, I don't know. Introvert leader. Your impression of your leader is
mm,
always someone who's like up front and center,
mm,
charging.
mm,
And I think it's interesting for me to start thinking about how some of them may be faking it to make it. I don't know. Okay,
mm,
but
mm.
I've not. It's something for me to think about that whether or not
I think it's still
you
I think
can
it's still
stay in your
equating
introverted state and
I
be a
think it's
leader.
still equating socialness with introversion or extroversion.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
difficult.
Social
It's
bonus.
difficult. It's difficult for someone who sees color to understand what a colorblind person sees. So sorry, as an extreme extrovert, I struggle with it on a daily basis. So anyway, for those of you who do struggle with introversion, okay, and and your career and in your life in general, if you want to reach out to Serena. She's a really good coach. And for those of you who are maybe having some career conundrums or some career issues, please reach out to us. info@careeragility.org. And if you have the time, go to coachcarol.ai. It's a new tool which we've developed. It's called a career health assessment tool. 30 questions gets you 18 career health indicators and a report on where your career health is at the moment. So go to coachcarol.ai, have a go at it, and use the promo code that's on the site, and you will have a special price on it. Okay. In the meantime,
Yeah,
thanks a lot for joining us.
beginnings.
Sorry, Ian,
New
you
year,
were
new
going.
beginnings.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, I
correct.
know. I have the lag is still continuing, so I shall shut up very soon. But
Yes, it's
Happy
telling
New
you to
Year,
have a
happy
good.
New
Okay.
Year.
In the meantime, keep calm and career on. Have a great one, guys. Take care. Bye. And